You are listening to Mining Stock Education, where you'll learn from the top leaders in the natural resource sector and uncover quality mining investment opportunities.
We've had the SILJ now is showing relative strength to the GDXJ. GDXJ is showing relative strength to the GDX. And the miners in silver are showing relative strength to the gold price. So that's what you need to see happening, and it started to happen this week as the Fed is ready to reverse its monetary policy, which is huge.
I'm Bill Powers. Thanks for tuning in. This is MSE, and I'm chatting today with my friend David Erfle from Junior Miner Junkie with the Y.com. David, it was great to see you in Beaver Creek. So let's start with the show. Last week, a lot of the industry gathered up in the mountains of Colorado in Beaver Creek for a 4-day summit. You were there. What was your overall sense of the vibe there, and how did it compare to previous years?
Yeah, it was really interesting, Bill. You'd never know that gold was trading at all-time highs, like back-to-back all-time highs while you were there. It seemed like there was a little less people than usual. I'd say the mood was rather subdued, but positive. I spoke to a lot of early stage junior management teams, and a lot of them they didn't have full meeting schedules, so there wasn't a lot of private money there. So if you have a great project and you're able to and you've been able to attract capital, and your stock has been bifurcating from the market, and you've been getting love with the miners, then you're happy. But there was still, there's still a lot of frustration, of course, because, on the Thursday, the day before the conference ended, gold went up over $2,600 an ounce, and you really wouldn't know it there. Something like that happens, and you'd think you'd have a lot of smiles and a lot of screaming and shouting, but that really wasn't the case. It's like it was almost like ho hum. The gold's made another all-time high, and my junior still, and my share price is still in the toilet on my junior. So it's been a stock picker's market, and if you've been able to get into a handful of the ones that have bifurcated, you've done well.
Any legal rumors you could share? I always ask you this. Legal rumors, like
legal rumors.
Yeah,
I've heard some rumors, but nothing that I can really repeat.
Okay.
It's funny, the one rumor I heard about Frank Giustra starting up a new silver company, I told to my friend and roommate at the show, Paul Harris, who works for Kitco and does the interviews there at the show, and then he was able to ask Frank about the company and get more insider information on it.
And that's part of the benefit of going to these conferences, right? And
yeah.
A lot of times when I've chatted with you at the conferences, you will share with me things that CEOs told you, not even other investors. And they tell you stuff not just about their own company, but about the industry, about what's going on, right?
Right, exactly. And we got that going on right now at the Denver Gold Forum. So it transfers over into that. And interestingly, we saw a major miner merger right before the conference, and when AngloGold announced they were taking over Sentiment in Egypt. And that, usually you start to see these big mergers right after the show, because that's what they're doing. They're all the big movers and shakers in the industry are there discussing mergers, acquisitions, financing, strategic deals, JVs, what have you.
For investing in a gold explorer, in light of the sentiment, the gold price, you mentioned you're on the sidelines for a gold explorer. Could you talk about what needs to happen before David Erfle would look at investing in a gold explorer again?
Yeah, you're starting to see it now. You're starting to see some excitement in the sector, but I need to see that obvious switch being flipped in the sector where the money's really started to trickle down into the smaller cap juniors that are higher risk. We've seen that on a case by case basis, on a junior by junior basis, already, but we haven't seen it sector wide. So, a lot of these companies, I like their projects, but I don't see where they have the access to capital. It's that dichotomy where it's almost like two markets where you have the haves and the have-nots. The haves have done rather well. The miners and the royalty plays have done really well, and you've had several of the quality developers participate in that bifurcation, but you haven't seen it trickle down into most of the other juniors yet.
So anything else from the conference that kind of sticks out that something you would have learned? You mentioned over dinner to me about some insights or some things that were shared with you about the proposed Mexican open pit mining ban. Would you be willing to share any of that insight, Dave?
Yeah, that was my big that was the thing I wanted to find out the most about, because I have, some Mexican exposure in my portfolio, because I mean, let's face it, that's where the silver is. So the information that I gathered was basically the new regime really can't say anything. Claudia Sheinbaum's regime she can't say anything until she takes over on October 1st. AMLO made a desperate try to get the open pit ban passed right before he leaves at the end of the month, but he's not going to have time to get that Senate vote. So you're already starting to see a lot of these silver juniors that are directly affected by this decision bounce really sharply during the conference, because it looks to me like she's already hired a couple dignitaries that are mining, that are basically friendly to sustainability. So she's a businesswoman, where AMLO is more of a just kind of a dictator type, where he says these things that he has no way of following through on. But she's more business friendly and pragmatic. So basically she put out this 100 sentences of transformation for the party, and number 87 was on open pit. Basically, she says no more open pit concessions will be granted, but if you've already got an open pit concession, then your project will be looked at on a case-by-case basis. Basically, if the community wants it, and it's not, and you're not going to be taking a lot of water that's needed for the area, and it's an arid climate, what have you, you're probably going to get your permit. But I wouldn't expect anything to happen within the first 6 months of the new administration until these guidelines are put in place. So any company that's gone through the permitting process and there's waiting for an underground permit, they're probably going to get it. 6 months from when she gets in will be, October, November, December, January, February, March. So maybe after March, some underground permit or two will be issued, and that'll be huge, because AMLO hadn't even approved any underground permits. So no mining permits were issued. Well, I think for the past 18 months of his administration. So once we get that first underground mining pit issued, I think that'll really help a lot of the share prices of these companies. And the open pit permits, they're going to take a little longer, but you just have to be patient, because she's going to come into power on October 1st and see that budget and say, wow, we need mining revenue. And also, open pit, I mean, everything comes out of open pits, and anything you want to build for anything, so issuing new open pit concessions aren't going to happen. But if you've already got that concession, you're probably eventually going to get it, but it's going to take time. You got to be patient.
So stay away from Mexican explorers then, in light of what you just shared?
Well, as far as it's funny, because I'm in a company that is at the PEA stage, and they're not even, they don't even need to go through the permitting process for another couple of years, and they're fully financed into a construction decision. Even though that is the case for the company, the stock was hit really hard the last several weeks, along with the other ones. So, there's an opportunity out there in Mexican companies, in juniors doing work in Mexico. So there is opportunity out there. You just have to talk to management and just do your due diligence and get into the right ones, and you got to be patient.
Did you sell any of your portfolio companies or buy anything new as a result of meetings?
As far as there's one on my watch list that I really like.
You don't have to share the name, but I guess maybe just share like what the discussion was that led into the buy or watch list or sell decision.
Oh yeah, the company recently put out a PEA that was I've been following the company for a couple years, and I do that. I put a company on my watch list, and I could follow it for several years before I get interested because the project looks interesting. Let's see how they de-risk this through this bear market. Because there's that fine line between dilution and de-risking your project, right? You got to play that game correctly, because I've seen several serially successful management teams from the past bull market mismanage capital markets, and even though they've de-risked the project that looks really, really good, they've mismanaged capital markets, and all of a sudden their upside's gone because they had to issue too many warrants, or they financed at too low of a price and they blew out their share structure, or both. So I watch these companies, and this company has done a really good job of both. I'd like to see them attract a strategic partner because the project is rather large, and the initial capex is kind of big, so they need a strategic partner. But that PEA was so good, I don't think they'll have a problem attracting a strategic partner. So, in this market now, that's now starting to be starting to get some love from investors in these stocks. So you can't really wait too long if you want to get into something like that now. You have to anticipate. So this is a stock. This is a company that I anticipate them getting the things put in place before I usually invest in something. So you just kind of have to up your game a little bit now, because I think we're really close to this sector exploding. I mean, if you take a look at the quarterly gold chart, I mean, gold's gone up 45% in the past 4 quarters, and the latest quarter is the largest is the largest move. It's this is really starting to come into place as far as the gold price getting the wind at its back with the warfare is going on, and the Fed about to lower rates for the first time in 4 years. I mean, basically they've caved on inflation. Right. I mean, the CPI and the CPI came out, and I mean, it's still well above the Fed's 2% target, the PCE, which is their inflation indicator. That's well above their 2% target. And they're now, if you look at the CME Fed Watch tool this morning, there's a 59% chance that they're going to lower 50 basis points. And the Fed usually doesn't do what the market expects unless it's over 50% that it's expecting it. So if they lower 50 basis points while inflation is still well above its 2% target, that tells you that they're worried about a recession. I mean, the yield curve just reinverted. I mean, an inverted yield curve, which yield curve's been inverted for over 2 years now. That's a harbinger of recession. But once it reinverts, that's when this recession is imminent. Yet Wall Street is still partying on, think it's going to be a soft landing or maybe no landing at all, while you got NATO attacking over there, Ukraine, and it's really getting bad as far as the war is concerned. The last reason why I want to see the gold price go up, but it is what it is. I just saw a Russian dignitary threaten that, hey, we should actually detonate a tactical nuclear weapon on our own soil just to stop them from trying to attack us. And that wouldn't be an aggression of war. It would be on our own soil. So, I mean, all these things that are going on here, it's getting really scary out there, and the gold price is telling us that.
What about silver? I've heard many people say over the many years I've been paying attention to precious metals, when we break through $30, we could have a run of at least $7 or $8 more, or if not more. What is your commentary on the silver price, Dave?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? This past week, a lot of positive things happened for the sector. We've had the SILJ now is showing relative strength to the GDXJ. GDXJ is showing relative strength to the GDX. And the miners in silver are showing relative strength to the gold price. So that's what you need to see happening. And it started to happen this week as the Fed is ready to reverse its monetary policy, which is huge. So yeah, I mean, I'm heavily leveraged to silver in the JJ portfolio, as you know. I've been waiting for this to happen. I mean, that's where the opportunity is, when you get in these bull markets in their sweet spot. It's the silver juniors that provide the most torque if you're in the right ones, because there's not that many of them. Yeah, I mean, it's getting really close. If we get a quarterly close, we got the quarter and the month end coming up here in a couple of weeks. It's going to be ending on September 30th, which is a Monday, 2 Mondays from now. We get a quarterly close above 32 in the silver price and above 2,600 in the gold price. I mean, that's that would be very favorable going forward here. I mean, I know the gold price is really overbought now, but it just keeps going higher. And the one worry I have is that if the gold price goes higher so far, so fast without correcting, that once that correction happens, it's going to be a sharp one.
And is the time to load up at the bottom of that correction after the downturn? Or well, you've been loaded up for 2 years.
I've been loaded up. I mean, if you take a look at the dichotomy between the gold stocks and gold, it's especially the juniors. I mean, they've never been this cheap in history.
So
I mean,
some commentators, Dave, say that argument's getting old. You know,
it is.
I see it in the comments. Like, guys,
it is.
Find a new tune.
I agree with it. I agree with that it's getting old. But I'm just sitting here patiently waiting because I know eventually it's going to happen. But we need to see that stock market roll over in earnest. We see the stock market start rolling over, and then while I was at the conference, we saw 1,000-point reversal of the Dow. I noticed in the morning that it was down like 700 points, and then I wasn't able to follow the market much while I was there. And then I flipped on my screen when I got back to my hotel room, and the Dow ended up over 200 points. So we need to see that fear coming into the stock market to where investors are looking for the next undervalued sector to get into. They still could care less about gold stocks, even though the gold price is trading over $2,600 an ounce, because they're still doing really well in the stock market. And it won't take much. It won't take very many, big money traders and generalist fund managers to start coming into this sector, because we've also talked about how tiny the sector is. So it won't take much. And then once the ignition starts and the shorts start to cover, and then the value-based investors start coming in, it takes off really fast. I mean, I had a stock recently, just to give you an example of the torque in that this sector provides. A junior developer that's been in my top 10 for the past, we've been in the stock for the past 4 years or so. They hit a 52-week low 3 weeks ago, and then they came out with a fantastic updated resource that more than doubled their resource, and it hit a 52-week high a little over 3 weeks later. So that's the kind of torque that this sector provides, and this is why I continue to hold these stocks. Because
your operating thesis, even with the expectation that the stock market is going to roll over, your operating thesis is such that you're not expecting a 2008 where the miners follow the overall general stock market down halfway before they zoom back up.
No, because there's really nobody in there. There's not that many investors in there to sell. I mean, you just take a look at the volumes.
Dave,
look at the volume on the TSX Venture. It's the lowest it's been.
I had dinner with the 40-year pro in Beaver Creek, and this is what he said. It was good just to hear him say it. He said, Bill, in junior mining, there's always somebody that wants to sell, but there's not always somebody that wants to buy. And I was like, it was good to hear that and just be reminded of that, right?
Absolutely. But I mean, if you take a look at the volume in the GDX and the GDXJ since the COVID spike low, the average traded volume is half of what it was before that. Even though the gold price has gone up, $1,000 since then?
But could it go to 1/4 that volume? I'm just playing the other side here, Dave.
Could it?
Yeah.
Well, sure. Anything can happen in the markets, but I don't see how fund managers can ignore this sector too much longer with the margins, right? That these miners are experiencing here. I mean, the profits are incredible. I mean, if you just take a look at the gold to CRB index, the commodities index ratio, and the gold to oil ratio, they keep trending up, and they're at 3-year highs. That's a proxy for the costs of gold miners, right? And the gold price is going up right along with it. So, ever since the gold price started rising faster than inflation, that's when these miners really started making money. Thus far, they've been spending most of their profits on share buybacks and dividends. They're going to have to start thinking, they already have, they start thinking about replacing those ounces on the ground. Because if you noticed, as the gold price went above 2,500 and it stayed there, we're starting to see a lot more M&A. It's really heated up. So they realize that. They got to replace these ounces.
Yep. And M&A occurs at the bottom of a cycle and the top, right? Those are the two places it likes to occur.
Exactly. I mean, when we were at the top last time, these companies were being taken out for $1,000, $1,200, $1,400 an ounce in the ground. So now you reverse that. Here we're at the bottom of a cycle, even though gold is $700, $800 higher than it was then. these companies are trading, these juniors that are developing they're de-risking and developing these multi-million ounce deposits. They're trading at an average of $40 and less in the ground. So there's the opportunity. You've got to be very patient. I've been patient. My subscribers have been patient, and I don't think we have to be that much patient too much longer. I think it's starting to pay off here. We've had, like I said, we've had several of our stocks bifurcate and do really, really well. We're still waiting for several others to join the party.
David's website, again, is juniorminerjunkiewithy.com. He offers a subscription service and also a free weekly Friday night email. You can sign up at his website. Dave, great seeing you in Beaver Creek, and always appreciate chatting with you. And we'll be talking about 30 days from now on the show again. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks a lot, Bill. Always great talking to you, and it was great seeing you in Beaver Creek as well.